Hello and a warm welcome to Political Capital, your intersections of money and politics. I'm Karaboletata. How much of Zimbabwe's economic future hinges on the free and fair elections come July 30th? This will be the first open election in Zimbabwe without former President Robert Mugabe on the ballot. What will be on the ballot, however, is a record number of presidential hopefuls, 23 to be exact, including 4 women. But in the end, it's really all about the big two. Emmerson Mnangagwa of Zanu PF and MDC Alliance's Nelson Chamisa. We have a riveting debate coming up on this issue later in the show, but first up, Chris Bishop has your papers.
Starting off this week with ruling party politics. According to The Citizen, the ANC is battling with itself over the transition as Gauteng postpones its ANC regional conferences to assess the readiness of the structures to hold crucial elective meetings. An expert has suggested the party in general is facing a massive leadership transition that has caused political instability. That's a story you're going to be looking into over the next few weeks on Political Capital. To the business day, draft mining charter still needs work. Big talking point this week. And the editorial concentrates on it. The industry needs transformation, but unless it can attract more investment, there will eventually be nothing left to transform. Without a significant and sustained increase in capital spending, SA's mining industry will continue to shrink, as will the number of livelihoods it provides for workers and communities. And now on to the Zimbabwe election story that's set for July the 30th. A mixed bag is going to be, according to the Daily Maverick. The country's first poll after the end of the Robert Mugabe era is in danger of being clogged up by a proliferation of little-known parties and candidates. Apparently there's 23 people standing for the presidential election. 4 of them are women, which apparently is a record. And finally, Zimbabwe's split opposition helping Mnangagwa to victory. The Mail and Guardian goes a bit further. Zimbabwe's divided opposition could bolster the long-ruling party's chances of victory after failing to forge a solid coalition for the country's first elections without Robert Mugabe. That's a story we're going to be watching for the next 6 weeks.
As the Zimbabwe election date draws closer, questions are being asked about the material conditions leading up to what was promised to be free and fair election. MDC Alliance, led by Nelson Chamisa, is crying foul. It claims it does not yet have an electronic copy of the voters' roll, which is supposed to be given to them by Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission. I sat down with the spokesperson for Zanu PF in South Africa, Kennedy Mandaza, and also the spokesperson of MDC Alliance in South Africa, Kumbirai Muchemwa. Kumbi, Kennedy, are you both eligible to vote?
Yes, I've registered to vote.
I'm going to be voting on the 30th. I'm registered to vote in my constituency is Bindura South, and I will be there to vote.
Gentlemen, Zimbabwe, as it stands right now, I mean, for a country that's going into the elections, that the voters' roll was only released now, and that's very much in dispute. What do you think of the conditions leading up to July 30th? Do you think they will be free, fair elections?
Well, that's the start of the problem because you have been led to believe that the voters' roll has been released. It hasn't. The ZEC keeps on making the, trying to sell this fake news that it hasn't. No one except Zanu PF maybe has got the voters' roll. People went to their offices today. It hasn't been released. The problems in Zimbabwe stem from a stolen elections. We had a voters' roll that had people who are 100 years old, 200 people staying at the same address. ZEC has not released the voters' roll. How do you go to a nomination court where you don't have the voters' roll? So as of now, we do not have the voters' roll, and ZEC keeps on saying that it hasn't. So the lie is being peddled by ZEC. Who knows why?
Is the opposition complaining for the sake of complaining?
There is nothing new that we expect from the opposition with regards to the process leading up to the elections. This is not new. But as we speak right now, even today, the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission had a press briefing. And even then, last week on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, had another press briefing on which she gave people the voters' roll. And what has been produced right now is the electronic voters' roll, which is supposed to be given to political parties. The other copies, the hard copies, are being sold, and the people have been told that there are channels and procedures that have to be followed. And in the press briefing today that took place with regards to the voters' roll, the chairperson said that people that have gone to buy the voters' roll, they are going to receive it as per the program that has to be followed in order for them to receive that. So the voters' roll is there. And we cannot claim that it is not there, because right now, if we were to ask even Kumbirai here how many people are on the voters' roll, he is likely to say there are 5.6 million. And this is as a result of information that has been collected together and information that have been produced as far as the voters' roll is concerned.
Kumbi?
Well, when you see Zanu PF defending what is supposed to be an independent institution, which is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, you have to realize there's something underhand. If Zanu PF has got a voters' roll, they must say that we are happy we've got the voters' roll. No one else, as of today, has got the voters' roll. Electronic or hard copy. All these are lies. 2 weeks ago, the ZEC chairman said there's a link on which you can download. There was nothing.
There was no hyperlink. I spoke to one of the candidates about that.
There's nothing. Today, you walk to people have gone to the ZEC offices. There is nothing. You go to a nomination court without. They keep on peddling these lies, and Zanu PF goes out of its way to defend the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to be Does Zanu PF Kennedy have the voters' roll? Maybe that's a question we need to ask. So you are happy you've got the voters' roll if you have.
To start with, Zanu PF, the Zanu PF does not defend ZEC, and neither any of the spokespersons of Zanu PF speaks on behalf of ZEC. But the information that we have is information that ordinarily should be with members of all the opposition parties, because ZEC has been having meetings with members of political parties time and again, including today.
But how come information seems to be disseminating to Zanu before it goes anywhere else?
No, it's not been disseminated to Zanu PF before it goes anywhere. We do not have a press. We do not go to a meeting with ZEC. ZEC calls all political parties that are interested.
Which is my point. I don't understand why Zanu PF goes out of its way to comment on the availability of the voters' roll, except to keep quiet and let those who are saying we don't have the voters' roll communicate with what is Zanu PF interest in saying no, the voters' roll is there when it is not there?
It's not an interest. It's not an interest that is coming out from any other ill-conceived ideas or whatever. But the truth of the matter, which is in the public domain, is that on Friday last week, the chairperson of the ZEC went out to give a press briefing which was attended by all political parties that have indicated the interest to be part of the election. And it is in this press briefing where she publicly, and it was in the public media, where an individual was given the voters' roll.
Kennedy.
And it can't be that people can go out and peddle falsehoods to say that the voters' roll is not there. The voters' roll is available. And we are not in any way defending the ZEC. We are speaking from a point where we have received.
Kennedy, you have avoided a question. Does Zanu PF have the voters' roll?
The voters' roll that Zanu PF is using is the voters' roll that has been availed to all the political parties through the electronic format.
I see. So Zanu PF has a voters' roll as we speak.
Like any other political party.
I see. Oh, well.
Does MDC Alliance have a voters' roll?
There is no voters' roll. Independent candidates, members of the Alliance, members of other political parties have gone to ZEC. Despite the chair lady of ZEC saying the voters' roll is available, it is not available.
You do realize that there's a precedence here. Your party stands accused of stealing an election once. So, events like this kind of leave a bad aftertaste leading up to what surely should be Zimbabwe's most important election.
I think it is important to understand that allegations are thrown left, right, and center. And until those allegations go through the judiciary and they are tested and verified, and when a judgment is passed to say Zanu PF stole an election, that's when we can therefore say that Zanu PF stole an election. And up to this point in time, we have not had any ruling which says that Zanu PF stole an election.
Well,
these are accusations that have been peddled, that have not been tested in a court of law and a judgment
your
made. Your
presidential candidate has promised that there will be free and fair elections. They begin by, first of all, seeming that way. Optics have to say that this is a free and fair election. And from what Kumbi is saying, already the playing fields are not even.
Yeah, I think we need to agree on one thing. Our presidential candidate, who happens to be the current president of the party of the country, he has been very clear. He wants to usher in or to deliver a free, fair, credible, and transparent,
Do you believe him,
and non-violent poll. And he has demonstrated that this is going to happen. And he will agree with me that the conditions that are prevailing in the country as of now, in the lead up to the elections, there are conditions that are favorable for any free, fair, and credible election.
Your man has been hard on the ground, hitting the rural areas, Nelson Chamisa. My question is, we seem to be seeing like a different level of participation, if you will. While your leader is seen front and center campaigning in rural areas, we don't seem to be seeing much from Mnangagwa. Is this politics?
Can I just answer the question you posed about the possibility of a free and fair election? Let's look at a number of factors, one which is violence. Based on previous elections, perpetrators of violence are still living in the communities. They've not been arrested. Now what Zanu PF does is the people who perpetrated the violence are made election agents. So you live in a rural area, you were beaten up by someone, and then when you go to vote, you find that person is a Zanu PF polling agent standing in a polling station. So it is not just about the absence of violence. It is also about the impunity, the impunity for past actions, for past violent actions. Also,
if you look at your party, are you recycling?
We are not recycling. We are not recycling. The president has been very clear, and he is demonstrating his desire to make sure that there is a free, fair, credible election. Well, and it is for that reason that he has brought in 46 countries and 15 organizations to monitor this election, to make sure that we are absolved completely as Zanu PF from these other allegations that come from the opposition.
If there is no recycling, Karabo, then Emmerson Mnangagwa would not be a candidate because he was one of the persons who was responsible for violence in the country. It is common knowledge in Zimbabwe that he was the orchestrator or the right-hand man from Mugabe in the perpetration of the violence. Not only Emerson, but the vice president of the country and the former commander of the army. So we have got people who believe that the only thing that works is violence. And when they are tested, when they are brought to the limit, they bring out army tanks onto the streets of the country, or they use state agencies to quieten people. If you look at a public media, it's gone out of its way to denigrate our presidential candidate. So the absence of violence is just one thing. But it is the presence of justice that we need for us to have a free and fair, credible election.
After the break, will Zanu PF, a party that has ruled over Zimbabwe since the independence in 1980, accept election results regardless of whether they win or not? There's more political capital on the other side of this. Welcome back to Political Capital. Now, transition of power is contentious in Zimbabwe. Many elections have been questionable. In 2008, authorities did not even release the results for fear they would show a defeat to then-President Robert Mugabe. In recent months, we've seen tanks on the streets of Harare. So will Zanu PF accept the results even if they do not win the next elections? I am still talking to Kennedy Mandaza and Kumbirai Muchemwa.
And for us in Zanu PF, we have acknowledged that there are certain things that did not go well during the primary elections. That is why we called the losing candidates and the winning candidates into one house so that we can have peace. And as we speak right now, we are moving with one voice. All those that won and all those that did not win are working together to make sure that we have a resounding victory for all our candidates, including our candidate is the presidential candidate, Comrade Emmerson Mnangagwa. And we are so sure that with this unity that is now in Zambia,
I need you to get in there. Okay, my question to you is, there's been lots of talks around how Zanu PF, how Zanu, for instance, uses state media to give itself airtime. Do you feel that the airtime is equitable, just? Is MDC Alliance getting the same airtime as Zanu?
Well, if it's just a question of airtime, you also need to look at the quality of the airtime, and look at the reports in the state media today, in the newspapers. They report, but what they report is what didn't transpire at those events. So there are blatant lies being distributed by the state media, and it's not just a question of airtime. It's misinformation. It is also I mean, coming to Kennedy's point now when he's saying Zanu PF is unified. As of Wednesday, a lot of Wednesday when the nomination court set, a lot of Zanu PF people were registering as independents. So I don't know what he's saying about unity, but that's a Zanu PF issue. But I just wanted to make the point that there are problems in Zanu PF, and Kennedy, don't come here and say now this one ship. It isn't. They have registered as independents, and that is as of Wednesday. That
Kennedy,
is maybe like
there's
4 days ago.
24 presidential candidates that have been confirmed. 4 of them are women, very progressive. But your candidate for president, current president Emmerson Mnangagwa, he's been on a drive telling Zimbabweans about the vast amounts of foreign direct investment that's coming into Zimbabwe. Those claims remain untested, yet his FDI claims keep on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Last I checked on the Financial Times, they were saying that 20 billion of foreign direct investment is making its way to Zimbabwe. How can that be when SADC, when Sub-Saharan Africa attracted run about that for the whole year last year? How can all this money be going to Zimbabwe?
Let me start by saying that when it comes to independent candidates, or independent people decide to become independent candidates on their own. And for those that are in Zanu PF that have gone out to become independent candidates, they are far much fewer than those that have come from MDC. Some of whom have been deprived by the mere signature of those that were signing for those that were supposed to go out and stand for the MDC Alliance. But that is their problem. And we are going to capitalize on their problem.
Let's get back to
if
the
our
FDI.
problem is that we put in independent candidates, let them capitalize on that. But on the issue, on the question that you have asked,
Foreign direct investments, yes.
Truly, the president has gone all out to
But where's the money?
To re-engage.
Where's the money, Kennedy?
The money is going to come. As there are procedures
Is
that
this
are
just a ploy to win the
no,
elections?
it's not a ploy.
Do you believe there's money
as we
coming
speak
to the
right
Zimbabwean
now,
economy?
before he comes in, before he comes in, as we speak right now, you are aware of the 400 million that came from DGIG here, which took which is 6 to rehabilitate the railway infrastructure. They've already started work.
Okay.
There is work that is already started also in Lupane, which has gone in, and there is work that is started in Dawenda.
That's far from $16 billion US.
But we are showing progress that is currently taking place.
There are 2 points there. He speaks of NRZ without any shame. Completely no shame, as we expect from Zanu PF. They bought trains which are completely incompatible with the infrastructure. So is that the 400 million we're talking about? Secondly, if you look at the 2013 manifesto, where they said they were going to bring in like 8 billion, I can't remember what wild figure they were mentioning then, and 2.2 million jobs in the 5 years. That was 2013. Now, they claim that employment in Zimbabwe is around 95%. How do they count that 95%? Because people on the street corners are selling tomatoes and airtime.
Do they count as employed?
So that they count that. So these statistics from Zanu PF are for political expediency only. Otherwise, we would be in Zimbabwe with the 16 billion. We wouldn't be sitting here. What would we be doing? Kennedy would be in Zimbabwe with that 16 billion.
Kennedy, is there a chance that you're losing this election?
There are no chances of losing this election.
Why do you say
there
that?
is so much traction that has taken place.
Zanu seems
ever
more
since
weakened now
the new
more than
dispensation
ever.
came.
Now, it seems more weakened now than ever before. Even Emerson was, voicing things like he's worried about his position should he actually become president, that there's internal forces within Zanu PF that are trying to oust him.
And President Mnangagwa is not worried about his position. In fact, Zanu PF is getting stronger by the day. And what is happening on the ground right now, even when you go out to the campaigns that he has been to, you will see that there is so much following. And even in the administration of Zanu PF, we believe we are so strong. And what we have seen so far with regards to the engagements and the programs that President Mnangagwa has put in place, there is no reason why people cannot vote.
Is
for
opposition winning this election? Do we have a clear winner?
Of course.
Is this your election finally?
Of course.
You've lost one before. You've been close. What's going to get you over the line?
Let's qualify the losing. Because we've been winning these elections, and Zanu PF decides to usurp the will of the people. So we've got a presidential candidate who thinks the election is only going to be on the 31st of December. You think someone like that is going to convince anyone to vote for him when he doesn't even know when the election is? The MDC and its partners are the only credible solution to the problems affecting Zimbabwe at the moment. Forget about Zanu PF. It is a top-heavy organization. At the bottom, there is nothing. That's why you see at its events, it's buses people and it's full of school children.
All right, Kennedy, your party is the incumbent, is the party in power. The question has to be asked, are you ready and willing to accept the results of the elections?
As late as Saturday, as late as Friday last week, the president was very clear that if an election was to be won by anyone among the 23, the 22 excluding him, is going to accept the results of the election, and he is prepared to work with anyone who is going to work.
Kumbi, you're the ultimate
and he has
test.
been very clear on that.
Well,
do you?
Well, as of yesterday, the vice president was making a statement in Mabuku that on the 30th of July, it is a completion of their Operation Restore Legacy. Which, by that, what he's simply saying is that they ultimately see this election as granting the legitimacy to Zanu PF to run the country. There have been statements made by people, senior people in Zanu PF, including a deputy minister and someone who sits someone who is in ED's government, that if Zanu PF loses this election, they will bring out the guns again. And mind you, Zanu PF has made no effort at all. Has made no effort at all to correct these statements.
Well, Kennedy,
well, the president has been very consistent. If anyone is to win the election, he is ready to support. And anything else that is spoken or during campaign rallies does not speak against what the president has
But surely
said.
when a deputy president and a general says
general
like that, you have to worry.
The general who is the deputy president did not say that they will not accept the result. He said people should go out and vote for Zanu PF so that we can complete Operation Restore Legacy. That does not in any way speak to him refusing to accept any other result. There is no one who can go for a campaign.
The challenge
Gentlemen, I have to give you parting shots here. So, Kumbi, let me start with you. What do you see as the biggest problem, and how do you as MDC Alliance get over the stumbling block and get over the Zimbabwe elections victoriously?
Well, the stumbling block in Zimbabwe is a lack of leadership, to be honest. I mean, the 38 years of failed leadership has gotten us to where we are. Through our presidential candidate and our partners in the alliance, we have drawn up a blueprint called SMART. And we have documented ways in which we will look at various sectors of the economy. So it's not just about the economy, it's about everything, social justice, agriculture, the judiciary, and so on. So that we have got an inclusive country where each Zimbabwean has got an equal opportunity to participate in the country. And the country grows so that the wealth of the country is distributed equally or justly to the citizens of the country.
Kennedy, your parting shot, what makes Zanu PF a 21st century party to lead Zimbabwe into the fourth industrial revolution?
Our manifesto is very clear as Zanu PF. We seek to make sure that by 2030 we have a middle income economy in which we are looking at growing the economy at least 6% per annum. But more importantly, I think we need to go all out there, those that are going to vote for President E.D. Mnangagwa, because he is a visionary leader, a pragmatic leader, a leader that has shown that he is prepared to engage people to make sure that the country grows.
I think his leadership will still have to be tested. Well, there you have it. Those are my two guests in studio. Kennedy Mandaza, who is the spokesperson for Zanu PF in South Africa, and Kumbirai Muchemwa, who is the spokesperson for MDC Alliance. Thank you very much for being with us on this episode. We're back on your screens this Thursday at 6:30. Until then, good evening.